In the previous videos on step 5, we talked about the areas that have some unique requirements that may differ from the typical overtime or point-in-time pattern of recognition. We looked at consignment provisions, repurchase provisions, customer acceptance clauses, and those specific areas. Now we want to look at one other area that can have some difference to the typical accounting, and that relates to licenses. So what you see on the screen is the software that we developed to help companies understand and implement the requirements of 606 and IFRS 15. And this is located at tasglobal.co. So the question is being asked is this performance obligation is titled software license, so that certainly implies a license, but is this performance obligation a license of intellectual property? So licenses of intellectual property have specific requirements. It's the first question, if we had answered yes there, the first question that's being asked is this a sales or usage-based license? And the reason it's being asked is because similar to what the prior accounting was under 605, companies are limited with the amounts that they can actually include in the transaction price and ultimately recognize in revenue to sales and usage that has already occurred. So if you had asked yes, it asks you if the sales or usage had already occurred, in which case you would indicate whether it's been satisfied or not, yes or no. But if you had said no, it is not a sales or usage-based royalty, which largely, if it is a sales usage-based royalty, because you can only recognize revenue to the extent of the sales and usage, that will largely dictate or determine the timing or pattern of recognition for the transaction price allocated to this performance obligation. But let's say that it's not a sales or usage-based royalty. So the question being asked now is, does the license have standalone functionality, or is it symbolic? So a license that has standalone functionality, a very common one is software. It has a function. It can process a transaction or perform whatever the intended function was of the license. So if you've answered yes here, what this will drive is in the report, it's going to have language that's going to tell you that if it has standalone functionality, then the performance obligation is satisfied at a point in time. So for example, if it's software, the point in time may be when the customer is able to download the software on their machine or whenever they're given access to the software. Now in contrast, if the license does not have standalone functionality, then it's considered symbolic. An example of that might be like branding or a trade name. The idea is that the utility of the license is derived from the ongoing efforts or previous efforts of the company. So it does not have any functionality, it's purely a symbolic. In which case what's being asked here is if straight line is the most appropriate measurement of progress, because this performance obligation, because it is symbolic, will be recognized over time. So you could indicate yes, and it'll be recognized per the software ratably over time. Or if you indicate no, later in the analysis you're going to be asked to provide an appropriate measurement of progress.